What's up, family? This is Pastor DeMarcus. I'm super excited about what we're getting ready to get into. Tonight is Tuesday night Bible study. At Heavenly Vision, we've got something exciting for you, and it's a conversation with the bros. I know that you may have some questions about how to transition, things like that, and we've got some great topics we're going to cover. This month, we're speaking about integrity. So make sure that you reach out. You got a couple of minutes to grab your son, grab your nephew, make a call, tell everybody to tune in. It's a lot of jewels that's going to be dropped, and we want to make sure you can pick them up. So let's jump in. Tonight, you're in. Tonight you're in for a treat because you don't have to hear me do all of the talking, but we are joined by some great men of Heavenly Vision, and we're going to have an explosive conversation. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight is going to be focused for the men because we wanted to share some insight and then begin to create better relationships with the men in our community, and that'll extend into the kingdom, right? So we start in our community, of course, kingdom focused, but then being able to build those relationships will absolutely help evolve where we see the men of the kingdom. And so again, I'm super excited. I'm gonna take an opportunity to introduce these young men that are next to me. I call them all young men because I think I'm older, so we'll let them just be young men tonight. But right next to me, we have Minister Jerry Wright. Welcome, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Amen.
Glad to have you out tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, sir. And then we have next to him, Brother Daryl Miller. How you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good.
Doing all right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, man. And then right next to Brother Daryl, we have another Brother D, Brother Danny Maeda. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
All right. So before I jump into some questions that we have, why don't you each just take a quick minute just to tell the people, just in case they don't know who you are. You got a minute just to tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right. I'm Minister Jerry, a.k.a. Church 562. Remember, put that 562 at the end from Long Beach. I am the owner of God's Will Apparel. I'm a husband. I'm a minister. I'm a father. I'm in so many veins. It's crazy. Yeah, God is just doing major things, and I'm excited for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Brother
sir.
Derek?
Yeah, so my name is Brother Daryl Miller. I'm also a father. Let's see, a man of God. I'm a barber. I cut hair, and I also work at a VA hospital. I was born here originally, and I was raised in Michigan, and I just kind of moved back some years ago, and just kind of raising family. Recently married,
All right.
And just living life and trying to do my best for the kingdom.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Brother Danny?
I'm Danny Maeda. I'm a father. I'm a provider. Try to be a leader, and trying to do better for me and my community. Whether it's anything, money, you name it. You talk to me about it, man.
Amen.
That's right. And so again, family, if you haven't had an opportunity to really get to know these young men, I would encourage you, when we're live, when we're having different events, definitely bend their ear. They're all more than willing to have a conversation. And that's one of the things I really love about the men here at Heavenly Vision, is that we understand community, and we're looking for the evolution, what's next, how to better, what we're doing here for the kingdom. So super excited to have you all. All right, so we got a couple questions that we're going to ask, but one thing that I like to do is always set a foundation, right? So for everybody at home, we're going to be focusing on integrity. So if you're not sure what that means, before this conversation is through, hopefully you'll have a better understanding, and you'll have some things that you can actually take and apply to your life. I'm big on life application. So anytime that I have an opportunity to share word, I always try to make sure that people can leave with some actionable items. So we're going to wrap the conversation up at the end with just some steps that you all have taken to apply different levels of integrity in your life. All right. Okay. So before we jump into that, my first question to you is, how would you define integrity?
For me, I would define that integrity is just being truthful, just being open and honest and transparent. One of the things that I look at as integrity is humility, because in order for you to have integrity, and use it and apply it to your life, you got to be humble, because it's bringing integrity opens up a whole lot of things. Yeah. Like it opens up truth. Yeah. It opens up for you to be bare and honest and open. So that's how I look at it, as humility. One of the key words that I could implement in this conversation.
Awesome. So integrity equals humility. Absolutely, there has to be a level of humility in there. And so, Brother Derek, how do you define it?
So integrity to me is kind of similar to honesty, but honesty is like, okay, you see me do something and I did the right thing, I'm being honest. People can see it. Integrity is what people don't see. Integrity is what is you and God know. Integrity is like you tell your kid, hey, go do that, and you turn your back and they do what they're supposed to do, even though they know they're not being watched, because they know they're going to do the right thing no matter who's watching.
Absolutely.
That's good, bro.
Absolutely. So doing the things you should be doing, even though nobody's watching.
Even though nobody's watching.
Right.
That's
Absolutely. Good. Absolutely. Brother D.
I see integrity as more of a cause and effect, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to do something, and sometimes it's not right, sometimes it is right? But then, like how you mentioned, Brother Daryl mentioned, the stuff that people don't see, the stuff that you've got to work on, yes. And just being able to communicate that with your foundation, with your community, so that you can get better within that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great points there. What I oftentimes will do, especially when I'm given certain topics, right? So things to focus on. So I try to find like a clinical definition, and then I'll try to find like the life definition. Okay. You know what I mean? So the clinical definition of integrity is, there's two different ones. The first one is the quality of being honest, right? And having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. The state of being whole and undivided. So the completeness of what you all said, right? It will summarize the definition of integrity.
Yes.
But one thing that I wanted to pull back on and just ask or just speak to, because for me, when it comes to integrity, I think about standards, right? Yeah. Even when I'm at work, I always tell, and even coaching, I tell my kids, my team, never sacrifice your integrity, right? Because there's many different variables that give us our true definition of integrity. And so everybody's will be a little bit different. But for me, it's establishing a standard and then living to that standard. Yeah. And then being Christian, we have help with the standard because we have the Bible.
Yes, sir.
Right? Jesus Christ came down. He lived a life that should have been an example of how we should be living. Yeah. He showed us the type of life, how we should communicate. He talked to us about, discipline, how we should react when it comes to authority. So even family, relationships, things like that. So he's given us the blueprint and he's helped us to establish a standard. And so for me, it's creating a standard that I won't sacrifice for anything. Right. And that is being humble, right? Being truthful and honest, making sure that I'm giving back and being that example to those who are coming up behind me. And so having that understanding, or me saying that now, would you adjust your definition of integrity?
Not so much, because what I have is already like that's implemented in there, that definition. So like that humility, that's part of having that standard of being integral. Because if you think about it, you're as we all have children here, we want to make sure that we're leading that example. Yeah. And so holding that integrity and showing them that you can be integral in the midst of a crisis or a situation that's occurring in your household, you showing them like, this is how I'm gonna handle it, and now you know how to establish it in your own household when you get older. So I believe that we're creating standards even for our children as we live accordingly to our own standards.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
What about either of you? Would you adjust your definition of integrity, or do you feel like it was encompassed in what we talked about?
I would. I like how you mentioned the establishments, right? Being able to establish, whether it's with my marriage, with my sons, how Brother Jerry mentioned, just being able to conversate with my wife, or even if we have a disagreement, being able to set a standard where we could resolve that, and then the kids, I could show them like, hey, I was wrong, and not leaving on bad terms. Absolutely. Sometimes I'm in a rush, I gotta leave, and I don't get to finish the conversation that we had. That I feel like it stays in the air. My kids see that. That's something that I gotta establish and set a standard that it needs to be done then and there.
Right. That's good, bro.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I would say, my definition would kind of still be the same, because when you use the integrity that I explained, like when you're making sure you're doing something, nobody's watching, they still see the fruits of what you did. Yeah. Even though they didn't watch you do it, they still, your boss or whoever trusts you to do this job, they didn't watch you do it because they know that you're gonna do it, but they still see that it's done at the end. So when they see that fruit, it creates an example, and examples create standards. So it kind of all goes full circle. It's all kind of hand in hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think for me, I'll just give you a little context. For me, growing up, I didn't have, my dad wasn't there. Right. So I didn't, and I know many of us can, have a very similar testimony. And even for brothers that had their dad in their life, if we think about, the day and time that we live and how times have changed, men went from, their focus was being solely on being a provider. Yeah. And the mom was the one that established the standard in the home, and if the dad was away, then everything was on the mom. Yeah. So we missed out, or I feel like I missed out on some of the man things. Yeah. Right. Being having somebody to give me that example. And so for anybody that may not have had somebody be that example for them, when it comes to thinking about integrity, what is one thing that you would first start with? Like, what would be a conversation starter if somebody walked up to you and wanted to just, hey man, I'm trying to establish these standards in my home and I want to be this, I want to be a God-fearing man. What is one thing that you've experienced in your life that you would pass on?
I love that you mentioned that the father, the absence of the father, because like you said, a lot of us can relate, and I know I personally I can relate to not having a father, because for me, setting that, being integral and setting a standard in my household was very struggling for me, because of what I knew and what I came from, the background that I had. It was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna bring into my marriage.
Right.
And this is how we're going to cultivate it, but it was wrong. It was completely wrong. And so, studying the Word of God helped me to see that I needed a vision. I needed a vision. And so that's what I would start the conversation off with. I would say, bro, listen, or sis, listen, you need a vision. You need to write out what you desire for your marriage or your life to look like. And that's how you start setting standards and becoming more integral to what you have written down. And so now you're following a blueprint for your life, and not only that blueprint, but then you're following God's blueprint for your life. And now as you consistently study, you're applying more to your vision that you've written out, because He's going to start opening up your eyes. You're going to start seeing stuff about yourself that you didn't know that you dealt with. Now you got to go deal with that stuff. Because even for me, I like being married for the last 7 years, going on 8. I had to, like, there was a lot of things I had to throw away about myself, that I had to change the way that I think, the way that I see, the way that I held myself. And so I had to change my standards, because I had people looking at me. Not only the church community, but the main people that are looking at me is my wife and my kids, the closest ones. And so when you're not keeping that standard consistent, and then you try to go outside the walls of your house and try to keep that standard, it's like they looking at you like, wait a minute, my dad is tripping, bro. That's not how he act. What is he doing?
You said something that was key, and that word is consistency. And I want to circle back to that in just a moment. But being consistent in establishing those standards, right, helps you to be integral.
Yes.
Right, because being integral means you're, like I said in the definition, it said being whole. So reaching the goals or living up to the standard that you set for yourself.
Yes, sir.
Right. So how would, and you guys can either one or the other go first, but what would you say to somebody?
Well, first I would kind of get to know them and see what their relationship with. Like I would say, God is very important, because it's stuff that I've seen, like a lot of the OGs and stuff, uncles and stuff around me. They grew up in the pimp culture, like they follow it, like get a lot of women and womenizing. But in my mind, in my heart, I knew that wasn't right. Because and I think that's only because I had God in my heart. If I'd have God in my heart, like I would be following it, because everything else I was looking at, like I want to be like the clothes and stuff, like that's. But I knew something in my heart was wrong with some of the things. So you just I gotta make sure, when I talk to somebody, see what their mind state is at, because if they really don't want it, if they really don't want to be better, if they just want to be of the world, then they're not going to want to change. But then that comes back on me, because I need to be that example and show them a reason why they should want to be better. Because people look at it like it's easier to do wrong, but if your mind and heart is really set on doing right, it's kind of easier to do right also. It's just a mind shift. So I was just kind of checking to see where their mind is at, and trying to help them in their mind state first, and make sure that they want it and they can see the fruits of going the right path.
Absolutely. So being the example, right? You, when wanting to expand or reach somebody else, you want to first do a wellness check, right? Just check in and say, hey, how are you? Where are you at mentally? And provide an observation. And then being able to, regardless of whether or not they buy in at the moment, because we know better, we got to do better. So by doing better, we have to be that example, right? So, Brother Danny, what would you say to somebody?
I'm kind of going in the path that he mentioned, because I personally, I had my family, I had my parents, but I kind of didn't grow up in a church family, right? I was never kind of involved But now seeing how things play out, you know, putting God first and, you know, following his footsteps, or trying to at least, because I'm not perfect. Being able to show others what he's done for me, you know what I mean? Just being able to be consistent. Like I said, I'm not perfect, but at least I strive to, you know, put out his word, you know, tell him like, hey, the blessings that are for me could happen to you. But you just gotta be consistent on your end. You know, you gotta approach him, talk to him, you know, be honest with yourself before you try to, you know, I guess, you know, do other stuff that you're not supposed to. And, you know, watch how the blessings could appear to you as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So continuing to be that example is super important, especially for men, right? Men, we're when it comes to new things, I think we're probably more skeptical than women, because we want to make sure that the intent is pure, right? So before we agree to do something, most of us will do some research. If it doesn't, you know, feel good to us, we may respond different. You know what I mean? So being a man and not having that example, and then all the things that you said about starting to want to impact your life or change your life to be more integral. A question that I have is, who is the most integral person that you know, and why do you feel that way?
You talking about like on Earth?
Yes,
Oh,
on Earth.
You gotta specify that.
Yes, on
Like,
Earth.
on Earth?
We know, yes. We can by default say that the most integral person, of course, we know that walked the earth was Jesus the Christ. And then, you know, the Trinity, they're infallible, right? But here on Earth, you know, who is the most integral person that you know? And while you ponder that, let me just give a little bit more context, right? So when we think about someone being integral, we've already established that it means that they're living up to a standard that you either verbally have heard and can agree to, or their actions are demonstrating something that, you know, is drawing you to feel like, hey, that person is a good person. And like Brother Daryl said, it could be based off of a reaction to their action, whether they completed a task or they did something that maybe nobody else wanted to do. So we can see different experiences that they may have, you know, been involved with, or, you know, just your overall perception of that person. But who would be somebody that you would say is the most integral person in your life? And again, they don't have to be perfect, right? Just somebody that's trying to be a good version of themselves.
I would say my dad. I would say my dad, because and just a little small context, like my dad is in my blood. Like I don't call him stepdad. He's my dad.
Okay.
My father I never met. You know, he passed away like when I was like in middle school. But I say that because my dad, he was a preacher, and I've seen both sides. I've seen preachers, and I've seen it deep in the streets. I know, and I know I know some people in the ministry, they still be dabbling in the streets, but they still put on this facade. My dad, when he was out, he was out. When he was in, he was in.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to do that. You know, it was money on the street, it was money in the ministry, it was power, or whatever you want to say, and both. So he could have played both straddle the fence, because nobody probably would have knew. But he knew he couldn't live with himself by, you know, if he was out of it, he had to stay out of it. If he was in it, he had to be 100% in. So I think it takes a lot of integrity to do that, because like I said, what he did behind closed doors, a lot of people probably wouldn't have known. He probably could have still played, you know, straddle the fence. Right. He chose his boundary, like, no, I'm gonna, you know, I can't do that.
Absolutely. And so what I pull from that is the accountability piece, right? We haven't used the A word in this conversation just yet, but a big part of being integral is being accountable. You may not necessarily be accountable to yourself, but, you know, you're accountable to those who you may not even know are watching you. Like, he may not have known that you knew that, you know, he was involved with both sides. You know what I mean? But as a man, you know, once you get a glimpse of who's watching, you know, that's power enough to change, right? If your heart is in it for the right reasons. So I definitely think that accountability is it plays a huge part of being integral, and that person that you deem to be the most integral person in your life, I'm just based off of what I'm hearing, I'm sure that there is a level of accountability there as well.
Yeah.
So what about you, Brother Dan?
I'm gonna say my wife, not just because she's my wife, but just the stuff that I've seen throughout, from the day that I met her, right?
That's good.
She introduced me to this church, beautiful church, and every person that I've encountered that is her friend or like that knows her, they always. I'm gonna give you like a scenario or something that had happened, right? I was with her friends, and one of her friends starts crying with Odyssey. It was me, Odyssey, and her friend. I think she started crying, and she was holding Odyssey, and she said, "Thank you for everything." And I was kind of like hearing what was going on, and she mentioned like, "Hey, every single time I'm with you or I'm around you, I feel like you kind of hold me accountable, and what's it called, to get closer to God, or to kind of follow the path, right?" I mean, for me, I was confused, but that was, before I ended up getting involved in the church. But then I started to notice, like, wow, okay, cool. Like she's actually doing her stuff. People see her doing her stuff. She's not perfect, but just being her to hold herself accountable to be true to herself and follow the footsteps of God. Other people see them,
right?
And they want to know, like, okay, for example, I'm gonna say like she's glowing. How is she glowing, right? Like they want to know that.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that being said, I feel like how you guys mentioned earlier about other people watching. That I feel like that's her. Other people watch her, and they want to know how she does it.
That's good.
And
Absolutely. No, that's perfect. Because another thing about integrity is by you living a whole life, not sacrificing your morals and values, it is infectious. It is something that people can pick up on, without you even having to say anything. Yeah. But what also helps with that too is in you not sacrificing your standard or your integrity, it forces other people to rise up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If they value being around you. Because if you're not sacrificing your integrity and you're holding yourself to a high standard, that means that if you're going to be around me, then one, you understand my standards, because we should have already been able to communicate this, right? If we gonna hang, then we gonna hang. So I'm gonna tell you how I like to hang, and you tell me how you like to hang, and then we gonna figure out how not to have any conflict. You know what I mean? So definitely allowing your light to shine and living a life, it not only speaks to the type of life that you live, but it also helps to establish a requirement for those that are around you. Right? I tell my boys this all the time: association brings about assimilation. So if I associate with you long enough, my good traits or what I do should begin to rub off on you. Right? So exactly. So being able to influence through just association. And so accountability, integrity, all of those things are non-spoken actions as well. So we don't have to talk about it. You just got to be about it. Let your life be that example. So absolutely, I appreciate that. I'm sure your wife is going to be super proud. So make sure to give Brother Danny some extra brownie points. Pastor B said, he got some credit that he just earned with that one. So yes, sir, Brother Jerry.
For me, I'm gonna piggyback off of Brother Danny, man, because my wife, man. The reason why I mentioned my wife is because of the heart that she has. Brother Daryl mentioned, he was referring to heart. He mentioned the heart in what he was saying, and it's the heart that she shows and displays, not just to the people in the church, but outside of the church. And she helps me change my perspective, not knowing that she's influencing me, not knowing that you're encouraging me and influencing me to be better with the decisions that I make, with the setting standards. And so I truly appreciate her lifestyle that she displays and puts on displays, not only for us, because not many people know that my wife, she only has 2 children. She only has 2 children. And so it's biological. Exactly. And so by her display and her actions and her character that she gives, showing still consistent love to the boys that she brought, that she accepted with her whole heart, because nobody couldn't even tell that those are not hers. You couldn't tell her. Don't argue with her. she gonna fight you.
Right, absolutely.
But I just love the way that she displays the heart. She wears her heart on her sleeve, as the saying go, and she actually does.
Awesome.
And so that's the person that stands out to me.
Awesome. And yes, she's definitely one of the most integral people. She'll tell you how it is.
Yeah.
And that's what you also need, right?
Yeah.
You need somebody who's not afraid to just give it to you straight, right? Without sugarcoating and beating around the bush. Sometimes you need that direct feedback, right? And especially when you are in a marriage, and all of us are married, and so being integral as a husband is super, super important.
Yes.
And we'll get to that in a later conversation. I mean, we could probably spend hours talking about what that actually looks like.
You know what's crazy? She took a principle from Men of Joshua and applied it to her life, and that principle was that telling your friend the truth or a brother the truth, regardless of losing that relationship.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's one of the things I love about her, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And that was thank you, sir. We're gonna plug right here, Men of Joshua. We got an all interest meeting on March 19th. So if you're interested in being a part of this next class, man, we got something special for you. Definitely tap in. It'll be more information that pops up. But March 19th, mark your calendars for the intro meeting. We're gonna have a great session with Men of Joshua this time around. So shameless plug. Appreciate you bringing that up. All right. So another question that I have is, as a man, we oftentimes will get bashed by women because they say it's no good men, right? Or my man ain't this, or my man ain't that.
Yeah.
I'm of the belief that age doesn't define whether or not you are a man. Right?
I could agree.
I believe wholeheartedly that a lot of brothers assume the title of man when they are not ready for it. Mm-hmm. And it could be a myriad of things that makes us unprepared to be able to walk in the true definition of a man. But for the women that are looking, what I wanted to do is just hear from you all. How would you define what a man actually is? Because when we talk about integrity, that's a huge characteristic that all men must possess, right?
Yes.
But before we get to men having integrity, what is your definition of a man?
Man,
or being a man, I should say, not a man. We know gender.
Man, like I said, like we grew up without a father. I grew up in the hood, so seeing examples of what a man's supposed to be was screwed. Mm-hmm. It was a screwed perspective. And so what I seen was gangs, guns, violence, abuse, And so I had to trash all of that, like I said previously, and gain a perspective of what a man, what defines a man, what actually is a man. And so from my perspective, as I've gained over the years, and being a father and a husband, a leader, being a part of the church, one of the leaders that I looked up to was Bishop James Ray Taylor, who was our apostolic leader, and he displayed so much integrity. And then not only him, my wife's father. Like those two men showed me a path to take. And so how I could sum up a man is, you're the foundation. You're the one that hold up your family. You're not only the foundation, that the ground that they walk on, you're also the covering. Mm-hmm. Not only are you the covering, you're the one that's supposed to be intimate, loving. And a lot of men have this perspective that we supposed to be hard and saying, hey, chest out. And it's like, okay, how are your sons that you have are going to learn how to be sensitive to the wives that they have? If you're always being hard on your sons, how are they going to know how to be sensitive to their sons? And so displaying love and affection, I believe that a man should know how to sum up being a man is a man being affectionate and being loving, because our community is being torn down because men have this perspective that they always have to be hard. They have to be thuggish. But if we change our perspective and be like, no, we need to learn how to produce love.
Yeah.
it would change the trajectory of society, like literally. Because now young men are going to produce love and affection in middle schools and elementary and showing and properly and effectively reaching other young men and showing them how to be loving and caring. Like that's what
So transitioning from, so one way to transition or to help a boy transition to a man is understanding that love and affection is a part of it.
Exactly.
And that you don't have to always be hard. That
Exactly.
You can be soft around those that deserve you being soft around.
Yeah, and they don't have to neglect the fact of being affectionate, because a lot of kids, a lot of young men believe that they can't be affectionate.
Yeah.
They can't be loving towards other men.
Yeah.
But when me and you meet, bro,
Yeah.
hey, I love you, bro.
Yeah.
Like I just started saying I love you to another man, like until I got older, like and started understanding, like, oh, I can't say I love you.
Yeah.
You know, so
No, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Brother Daryl?
So my idea of a man kind of came in stages. Like the first idea, like as a young boy, I thought being a man was when you got like a mustache. And then I see this guy in high school with full beard. He had just as immature as me.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I scratched that. Then I thought it was when you had a baby.
right.
You're able to make a child. Okay, you're a man now. But then I realized some of the dudes that was having babies, they out there being ignorant in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And it just kind of went on stage, and then I stopped putting a label on it. And I was like, okay, let me kind of pay attention. And it really didn't get me till I was probably about 16. About 16 when I had to pretty much be the man of my house. My mom and dad had kind of separated, and I had to be the man of the house. And that's when I started to, my mom said, you're the man of the house. And I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And another thought I thought was like, okay, if people feared you, then you're a man, but it had nothing to do with none of that. A man to me is really when you're admitted, when you're ready and willing to admit when you're wrong. When you come to a child where you don't, you can say, I don't really owe them, they owe me. I brought them into this world, I take care of them. But when you can humble yourself and come down to their level, kind of, and say, I was wrong, the way I came at you, I was wrong. Allow them to speak, allow them to have a voice. That when you can shift and give away that kind of power as head,
That's
and
good,
then still know that you're going to get it back.
That's good.
You
Give away that power.
Some people are scared. They give it away. They're never going to get it back. No,
Exactly.
but if you're a real man, you're never going to lose that position.
Come on,
that's
bro.
That's solidified.
That's good.
So I just think that's
Absolutely. When you're mature enough to understand that you don't have to have the loudest voice to be the one in charge.
That's
right?
good.
When you can give authority to your children, to your wife, to be able to operate in their vein without you lording over.
That's
good right there, bro.
Speak on that real quick. I was watching the movie. It was like medieval times, and you had the king on there, and he would make orders sometimes without even saying words. He's looking towards the camera and he does an eyeball like this, and they take a dude and go take care of it.
Yeah.
Like it's like you didn't even have to speak sometimes. So it like if it don't come with the loudest person at all.
Absolutely.
Man, that's so good right there.
We definitely, if y'all didn't get that, play it back. But we gonna make sure that y'all capture it. You don't have to have the loudest voice, but you have to be mature enough to be able to pass on or give out that authority. Absolutely. Yes,
That's
sir.
so good.
So I don't even gotta say nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and it's important, and I wanted the men to be able, and the women, because I don't want, even though it's exclusive to us on the panel, what we're actually sharing are tools that maybe some women who don't have men in their life, right, but are starting to ask questions. Or they're looking to begin relationships. So what am I supposed to be looking for? We're talking about integrity, but you can't fall in love with the guy just because he's old enough for you to fall in love with.
Oh my God.
That doesn't make him a man. It just means that according to law, he's old enough to get drafted into the army. That's really, by definition, that's really what, by government standard, that's really all it is.
Yeah.
But we know based off of experience here, and I'm pretty sure we can again spend a bunch of time talking about it, but being a man is not defined by your age. It comes with a level of maturity and understanding that you're not here by yourself, right? God didn't place us. He didn't create just Adam and leave him in the garden by himself. He created him a helpmeet. And in order for us to be ready for our helpmeet, we need to make sure that we have done self-assessments, right? That we understand who we are, so that when we are introducing ourselves to that particular woman that we're interested in, or even looking to establish any different type of relationship, it's still super important that we understand who we are and what we bring to the table, right? So that way we can communicate, right, exactly what it is that we're looking for. So my next question, and again, this is some great dialogue. My next question is, in Job 1, it describes a man whose value was found in being blameless, right? Upright, one who feared God and shunned away from evil. What does that look like from your perspective? Again, I'll repeat it. In Job 1, it describes a man whose value was found in being blameless, right? So we can replace that with being, he was faultless. He didn't have any issues. There was no occurrences or things like that came up against him. Upright just meant that he tried to live the best life that he could. Yeah. And then he feared God enough, and then he didn't partake in evil, right? So what does that look like from your perspective when you want to describe being a man? How, again, and we kind of been talking about it here just a little bit, but to paint a clear picture for what you would define a man to be. Like, he's got all right, I'll change it. What are 3 characteristics, right, that you would share with your sons, and it doesn't have to be biological, right? It can be brothers in ministry, it can be, your nephews, anybody or a boy that's growing into that age where he's starting to ask questions and transition. What are 3 characteristics that you would share with them to help them become the type of man that we're talking about here today?
Oh, man, listen, because I have 2 sons that are they're teen and preteen. My youngest boy, he like 2 years from being teen, and my oldest one is teen. But one of the things that I always share with my sons is that, like Brother Darrell said, a man always admits when he's wrong. Okay. He always admits when he's wrong, and that's part of holding to your integrity. Now you're setting the standard, admitting when I'm wrong. Another thing that I always tell them that he always he accept the consequences that are coming. Okay. Yep. Because when you make a mistake, there's no running away from the mistakes that you made.
Right. But let me pause here and say, consequences, there's a negative connotation with the word consequence, right? Okay. But no, and you don't have to change it. But what I want to make sure everybody understands is consequences are just the opposite, or is just the reaction to your action. You know what I mean? So it's the reaction to your choice. Yes. Right? And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Yes. It's just the reaction to your action. Yes. This is my choice. So here is what I have to deal with now. Yeah. Right? So my bad. Keep going. No,
that's good, bro. Just giving them the breakdown. That's good. And then another thing that I would implement in them is that be truthful. Hold to your truth. Stand on your word. Yeah. Because a man is defined by what he say. A lot of times, because if you tell the community, if you tell the church that, hey, I'm going to be there to clean up the church at 6 a.m., but then you never do it, people are not going to be trusting in your word no more. Yeah. So holding fast to your word is a very powerful thing, because a lot of men would say this, you have your word that you stand on.
That's all you got.
That's all you got.
That's all you got. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Brother Darrell?
So one of my things would be respect. Okay. If you don't have respect in the situation, like, and everybody knows respect goes both ways. If you don't have the respect in the situation, like it takes the boundaries off of it. Like it can pretty much go. You know how you coloring, they say stay in line. It can pretty much go all over the page. Yeah. So respect is important.
The words that would define me as a man is being able to be caring, right? Sometimes I feel like as a man, sometimes we approach people a different way. Sometimes we could be a little bit too aggressive.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't care about how others feel, and I feel like we gotta work on that. I personally gotta work on that as well. Being able to, you know, be how can I say it? Be a little bit more, I guess, emotional. Because sometimes, for me and my kids, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm
too hard
on them, right?
Yeah.
But then, you know, sometimes I gotta understand, you know, they're small, you know, they're brand new to this world. They don't know much, right?
Right.
So I feel like I have to work on that. So caring and be responsible, right? Kind of following back what Jerry said, being able to be responsible and truth to your word. If you say you're gonna do something, do it. You know what I mean? Just don't go back on what you said, you know, because other people are not going to believe on you or depend on you. And the last one will probably be caring, responsible, and loving. Yeah. Being able to show others that, you know, that you could be affectionate as well, you know,
yes, that's good, bro.
the proper way. And being able to have that towards your wife and being able to set that boundary so others can see that, you know, you could be a successful marriage. You could be a successful parent.
Can I implement one communication you have been in? You had said it, and I think for us men, a lot of men don't know how to communicate, right? Or never was taught how to communicate. Because I know for me, I wasn't taught how to communicate, and so I would close myself in and be like, and shut down, literally shut down, because I don't like altercations, you know what I'm saying? I don't like getting into that stuff, so I would shut down. And so being an effective communicator and learning how to effectively communicate, that'll be a great key to applying integrity into your life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it came.
All right, yes, sir. No worries. Look,
so you know, respect keeps everything in boundaries. I would say also trust. Like in relationships, especially like marital dating type relationships.
Yes, sir.
Our biggest issue, our biggest thing that we have to face as men is to get women to trust us because of what the world got going on. And the best way to gain trust is to be that example of trust. If you give a woman like trust from the jump, if you give any situation, you can give a friend like trust, and then they see like you're leading first foot, you're putting the first foot forward, and they think like, okay, well, why is it so hard for me? They'll start to think in their mind, like, okay, well, what's wrong with me? And they'll try to, you know, their guards start coming down, and their example will be set. And also honor. Like honor goes from when you're a child. Like when you're a child, you're supposed to honor that mother and father. So and when you get married, you're supposed to treat your wife and your home like God treats the church. So honor is real good. Honor is real, you know, high up on my pedestal, because when you honor something, you cherish it. It all kind of goes together. When you protect it, like honor, you know, covers a multitude of things. So I would say those things: respect, trust, and honor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you said something really, really key. And we're about to wrap this up. We can film a part 2 a little bit later on. But one thing that you said that I definitely wanted just to speak to really quick is the trust piece. And as men, because we've been groomed, I'm not gonna go pro-black on y'all, but we can go all the way back to slavery. And so what's happened is that we've been conditioned not to trust, and especially not to trust one another. And then when you think about the relationships in our cultures, it's been where it's bred mistrust even between husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend. Like we don't start with trust. But what I found is that you have to, like you said, you have to give trust freely. And because it's not something that needs to be earned, it needs to be unearned. You need to be able to give your trust. You need to be able to give your love. You need to be able to give your communication. You need to be able to give people your integrity without them having to earn it. Let them unearn it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Let them unearn it, because what that does is it de-weaponizes conversations. And when I say de-weaponizes, it takes us from being like this to now we sitting here, ears open, mind open, eyes and heart open, to be able to receive the things that are being said. And so even for the brothers out there who may have experienced some things in life that have pushed you to a place to where it's like, man, I don't even want to hear what they got to say. They just in the church, so they gonna gas it up and they gonna say all these things to make it sound good. But here's the reality. Understand that we understand exactly how you feel, but you've got to understand that you've been conditioned to think that way. So as we've said here before, it's a mindset shift. As a man, as a boy who is transitioning to a man, you have to understand that your past doesn't necessarily have to define your future. It can impact it, but it does not have to define it. Yes. So whatever it is that you've experienced until this point in your life, it's okay, but it does not have to go with you into your tomorrow. Right? So as you're looking to transition or become a better man, if you want to be a man, or if you're trying to transition into a better man, all of the things that we've talked about now, it comes down to a couple of key things. One is giving of yourself freely, because, and here's the justification for this, why I can stand on it 100%, Christ didn't need to have a specific, intimate, physical relationship with each and every one of us in order for him to accept the challenge or his mission and then come down here and die on the cross, right? So that we would have an opportunity. He trusted enough in us to believe that we would see what he did and then emulate the life, just based off the fact that here's the greatest example you can get. Right? So he did it for us. And so for us going forward, we've got to lay down all of the things that we've carried with us, all of the generational curses, all of the things that we've experienced, or the things that we haven't had, the lack, because we didn't have a man giving us that particular example. But now you have men that are around you. You have men that if you choose to come be a part, or even just hit us up and say, hey, let's have a conversation. You have men that are accessible to you who can talk to you about things that they've gone through in life, that can help guide you into being the best version of yourself that you can be, not only for yourself, but for your family and also for the kingdom. And we have to begin to get to that place, right? So being able to give of ourselves, understanding that communication is a big part of being a man. If you don't know how to communicate, stop getting mad at that person you communicating or having a conversation with if you haven't had an opportunity to level set expectation.
Yeah, that's good, bro.
If you as a man or a boy transitioning into be a man or trying to be a better man, look at the way that you communicate. Are you pissed off or angry with that other person, your significant other, your wife? But take a step back. Your children? Did you teach them the thing that triggered this type of emotion from you? Have you had these conversations? If you haven't, then we don't have a right to be upset because we didn't teach them. It's like talking to a baby. He's 1 year old, but we ain't talking about being potty trained, but you're going to take the diaper off and get mad at him for using the bathroom on the carpet. Did you teach him how to, you know what I mean? It's the same thing. When we communicate, are we talking about the things that we like? Are we talking about the things that we don't like? Are we talking about how we want to be affectionate? You know, what type of affection do we want to receive? You know, when we're establishing those relationships or those boundaries, it's important for us to examine all of those things. And then once we start to stack those things in order, we have our standard, which now we can be integral to something. Because now we have a clear picture, a whole picture of who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. And that allows us to walk into the next phase of life where God has a tremendous work for us to complete. We got to stop being hung up on where we are and what we've experienced and understand that God is going to bring us through, but we've got to continue to work on us, right? So I appreciate y'all, man. I know that we tipped on a couple of things, and I'm going to talk to Pastor Mike, and we'll probably get another session going up. And I mean, even if we just do it for the summit, you know, we can go back and talk about a couple of the points, or even in the Men of Joshua class. I mean, I know most of you have taken it. If you haven't, if it's been a while, come back through, because we're going to do some great stuff in it again. But we can even extend this conversation, because the more men that we're able to talk to just about our life experiences, imagine that type of impact. You know what I mean? Just touching one, you know, that's all. The heavens will rejoice when one soul is saved. So if we can help another brother be able to turn that corner and begin to walk upright and be the type of man that God is calling us to be, that is completion of a work down here on earth. So I appreciate you, brothers. Thank y'all for joining us. Family, we appreciate y'all for listening. Hopefully there were some things that were said that were impactful to both men and women. And if you desire more information, we'll have ways for you to contact us. You can reach out to us by email, through our app. We'll have the information scrolled down here on the bottom of the screen. But I appreciate you, family. God bless you. Good night. Is your mind blown? Mine is. I'm so proud of these brothers that I was able to dialogue with for the last hour. And I hope and pray that what you've heard is something that will be able to help transform your life. Know each one of them personally, and I know the sacrifices that they're making to be the type of man that God has called them to be. And so I'm super excited for them, and I'm also excited for you. The jewels that were dropped, the things that we can apply to our life about being integral, about being accountable, understanding that communication is something that we all need to strive for, are the things that will help us to be the type of men God needs us to be. So, with that, I wanted to share out some additional information so you can stay connected to us here at Heavenly Vision. Coming up on March 12th, we all have a great celebration going on. We have a School of Ministry celebration, a culmination that's going to happen for our prayer boot camp warriors. All of those who have spent weeks in discipleship, learning how to be better at praying and seeking the face of God. We're going to celebrate all of their accomplishments. If you're interested in joining in with us, please make sure that you sign up and you can register. The link will be on our website and also in the app. Also on March 19th, you want to make sure that you tap in for the Men and Women Summit. You don't have to be married. You don't have to be in a relationship. But if you're looking to be a better version of yourself, make sure that you register and tap in. I love you, family. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.